Hello everyone, I'm Brother Nelson Lee, and this is a PM update for Major Hurricane Melissa. It's the 26th of October. We have a catastrophic, serious unfolding situation uh, setting up for parts of the Caribbean Sea, Jamaica, Cuba, Haiti, Hispaniola, and I want to discuss that with you, and so that those of you who are followers of Jesus Christ, can be urged to pray for those people in harm's way. I want to first of all start with the latest advisory. The next advisory should be coming out here in a couple hours. But the latest advisory, Hurricane Melissa, as you can see, it's sitting about 115 miles southwest of Kingston, Jamaica. Maximum sustained winds are 145 miles an hour, and it's moving very slowly off to the west at 5 miles an hour, and the pressure is down to 941 millibars. And you can see the hurricane warnings there for Cuba, and also a hurricane warning for Jamaica, and watches are out for Haiti. And when we look at the discussion and the outlook, you can see that it's moving very slowly. Maximum sustained winds have increased to 145 miles an hour. Now, that is a Category 4. It's only 15 miles an hour below Category 5 strength. But when you get up to that kind of wind speed, it really doesn't really make a whole lot of difference. Uh, it's going to fluctuate in intensity, but I do believe it probably will make a run at Category 5 here later on tonight and tomorrow. And the key messages here, uh, we have tropical storm force conditions occurring in parts of Jamaica right now. Looked at the airport a little while ago, and they were getting gusts over 30. And rainfall. Now, this is the thing that we'll be really looking at. Rainfall 15 to 30 inches over portions of Jamaica. Possible locations going to receive over 40 inches. Eastern Cuba, 10 to 15 inches. Isolated amounts to 20 inches. And Bahamas, 4 to 8 inches. Now, also, if you look here, it says that rainfall 8 to 16 inches for southern Hispaniola. Also parts there, possibly 40 inches. So the other issue that we're going to be looking at is storm surge, uh, 9 to 13 inches feet above ground level. This is near and to the east of where Melissa makes landfall, and this is going to be accompanied by large and destructive waves, especially on the eastern side of the storm. And we're going to look at Google Earth and give you a really good look at the topography of Jamaica. So let's take a look at the track here. And you can see this is the latest track, and you can kind of see where it's meandered a whole lot. But now that it's kind of getting a little bit under some steering flow, you can kind of see where it's forecast to come in about 50 miles west of Kingston, Jamaica. Um, that can still shift a little bit. And you can see the Kingston's going to be really on the dirty side, and we're going to show how that kind of plays out. But look at the rainfall forecast for Jamaica. All of this here is 20 to 30 inches of rain with isolated amounts up to 40 inches. And then you can see over here in Haiti, you can see a good swath of 8 to 12 with isolated pockets of 16. And that's just going to be devastating. And you can see Port-au-Prince over in here in the 4 to 6. I wouldn't be surprised to see some of them get 10. And then you can see a good swath of eastern Cuba, including Gitmo, Guantanamo Bay of 16 to 20 inches. So rainfall is going to be a serious threat. So I want to give you an overall look at what the pattern looks like here. You can see Melissa sitting here kind of in the western central Caribbean Sea, just south of Jamaica. We have a mid-latitude system moving through southern Missouri and northern Arkansas. And that's going to be influencing the path of Melissa over the next several days. So here's the IR picture, and just look at this buzzsaw. This is something you don't see very often. This is terrifying, honestly. And when we look at the visible imagery here, we can see that the sun is just now starting to set. But one of the things I want to draw your attention to, let's see if I can actually zoom in enough here. Yeah, it's kind of hard on this image. But one thing I want to draw your attention to right before the sun sets is you can kind of see the shadows here. Notice how it's very small at the surface and it broadens out aloft. This is called the stadium effect. Anytime you have a very small uh, center of circulation at the bottom, and where you can see the clouds forming, cleared out at the bottom, and then they're cleared out larger at the top. That's called the stadium effect. You only see this in very powerful hurricanes. And you also have another phenomenon that shows up occasionally in hurricanes where you get a small clearing at the surface and you get another small clearing at the top, and then it's cleared out in the middle. You'll get a pinhole eye and then you'll get a pinhole clearing at the surface and cleared out in the middle. And that's called a fishbowl effect. And those two phenomena are only seen in very powerful hurricanes. And so seeing the stadium effect here so clearly on the visible imagery right before we lose the sunlight, that's a very powerful hurricane we're dealing with. So going back here and looking at the IR, you can just see that. You can't really see the low clouds. You still have some milkiness here, but it's a very warm, what we call a warm center. And that warm center is caused by the air coming up and it collides with the tropopause, and it has to spread out, and most of it spreads out, but some of it comes back in and it's forced downward. And what happens is warming happens. So as air sinks and is forced downward, it warms, and as it warms, it dries the atmosphere out and it clears it of clouds. So as we see that the Air Force reconnaissance is leaving the system. Now they you can see here they reported 942, but they had a little wind there, so they lowered that down because it didn't hit the exact center. But one of the things I want to show you here is one of the observations. Let's see if I can find it. I believe it's this one right here. Yeah. Matter of fact, it is this one right here. You can see this is the SFMR. This to actually measure speed, the speed of the foam. Radio waves pick up the speed of the foam, and they measure how fast the foam's being blown around, and you can actually tell how fast the wind speeds are at the surface. And so they picked up a 10-second wind speed of 152 miles per hour in the northern eye wall as the reconnaissance was flying through. So that's nothing to sneeze home about. That is a very powerful hurricane. We have the Noah bird that is now flying through it, but you can see they're on their way. They just now crossed Cuba. They're just west-northwest of the western tip of Jamaica, so they'll be down there in the next 30 minutes or so. So let's look at what our pattern looks like. You can see Melissa way down here in the southern part of your picture, and we have a mid-latitude low over here in North Texas, and we have another system coming in here in the Pacific Northwest. So let's look at how all this kind of evolves. You can kind of see that Melissa's just kind of stuck with no steering right now, but as this mid-latitude system from Texas comes into the southeast, it's going to weaken that ridge that's kind of to the north of it, and it's kind of cut it off from the flow. It's going to give it just enough pull to kind of get it out of there. And you can see that, and it'll get it out of there slowly. But then we've got our system that's over there in the Pacific Northwest. It dives down right around Halloween and starts to kick it out. And matter of fact, you can see the center of the low right over Nelson's house in northeast Tennessee, right there on the morning of the 30th of October. And that's going to provide me with a little bit of chilly air, probably our first snow of the season here in northeast Tennessee at in the Blue Ridge Mountains. And as you can see, it kicks it out. So bye-bye, Melissa, here in another, let's say, 6 days, 5 or 6 days. And then as the pattern slowly shifts, we got another low digging down around the 2nd and 3rd of November. And it digs down, and then we have another low dig down. So cold air coming to the eastern part of the United States. If you live in the eastern part of the United States, just know that your time is coming. And just real quick to kind of give you an idea, if you do live in the eastern part of the United States, in the Ohio Valley, if you're watching anywhere from Michigan, shout out to those of you in Michigan watching this, and down into the Tennessee Valley, the Ohio Valley, kind of give you an idea. We'll get back to Melissa here in a second. But you can see the first little bits of snowfall in the Appalachian Range there. We get some snow, and we actually get quite a bit of it. So you get an idea of what's coming. Just give you an idea of what we're looking at here at the Lee residence. It's going for a max of 9 inches here up on the Rhone. So you know that's a pretty hefty little snow, bit of snow, contrasting with a Category 5 hurricane in the Caribbean Sea. So let's take a look again at Melissa. You can see this is just one intensity forecast. I'm not going to go through all the models. They're pretty united here, but you can see what it does. So it takes it drifts it west for a while, and then as it comes under the influence of that trough, it brings it into basically central Jamaica, and that's where we're going to talk about the impacts here. So let's go to Google Earth here. And here is just a look at all the models. You can see they're very tightly clustered. Kind of ignore these out here. And this little alert sign here is where Melissa is right now. And you can kind of see some of the models are bringing a little east, some are bringing a little west. I believe it'll probably end up somewhere right in here. And that has a lot of impacts here over Jamaica. And there's several things that I do want to point out to you. So first of all, Kingston is right here. We're looking at anywhere between 9 and 12 feet of surge. And a lot of it is because of the way this bay is shaped. And you can see with the way the storm will be coming in very slowly. So if we go back, okay, if we go back and look at exactly when this storm is coming in, okay, let's see, most likely time of arrival, we got, Monday a.m. is when these tropical storm force winds are going to come inland. But if we go and look at exactly what the timing is here. So inland over Jamaica, we have Tuesday at noon. All right, Tuesday at noon. So that's Tuesday at noon right here. So we're looking overnight right here. And then Tuesday at noon. This is going to be such a slow mover. And so as we go back and look at Google Earth, check this out. You're going to have all this fetch coming from the southwest as this storm is slowly moving up. You're going to have this constant fetch coming from the southwest, piling up into these bays right here, into Old Harbor and into Kingston. The only major airport is Norman Manley International Airport. Here is Kingston. And as you can see here, the maximum height above sea level here is only about 10 feet for, well, the airport itself is, the runway itself is about 7 feet above sea level. And the airport terminal is about 10. And it is attached by this little strip of highway here that is 6 feet, 7 feet above sea level. So chances are is all of this is going to get overwashed and eroded, and you're not going to be able to get to the airport. And the other tragedy here is I just watched a video earlier this afternoon about Port Royal or Port Royal, and you have about 2,000 people here who live here, call this place home. It's literally right on the water, and these people have said they're not leaving. To a man, to a woman, this is what they call home. This is where they fish. This is where they make their livelihood. And just like people where I grew up, right before Ike, they said, we've seen it all before. We've been through hurricanes. You're not telling us anything we've never heard before. We're not going. And that's tremendously sad because this is not a normal storm. And so you can imagine what 10, 12 foot of surge over this area with prolonged hurricane force winds and 20 inches of rain, you just know. And so when the last thing I want to talk about is just how these mountains here are aligned. So you have Blue Mountain Peak here, which is over 7,000 feet tall. And you have this mountain range here. And remember, this is where they're calling for over 30 inches of rain, isolated 40 inches of rain. And the thing I want to make note of is the widest point here from sea level to these mountains, which are anywhere between 4,000 to 7,000 foot tall, it's only 6 to 8 miles. So you go from sea level to 7,000 feet in some instances, sea level to 5,000 feet, sea level to 4,000 feet in a matter of 5 to 8 miles. And so all of this tropical moisture is literally getting forced up at over 100 miles an hour, forced up and wrung out over this mountain range. And then you can see the rivers. You see all the rivers. You see this main river coming down here. You see this main river coming down here. You see these rivers coming through Kingston. You see this massive river coming through here. And the last thing I want to point out is when you look at these rivers, it's not unlike the place where I live in Tennessee. Every little holler has towns, has buildings, has homes, has churches. Look, it's the Pilgrim Church of God's right here. The Pilgrim's Church of God is Ebenezer's Lodge here. Look at here. You know, you have all these little villages on the mountains, and there's a lot of coffee plantations here. You know, you have a primary school up here. You have the Westphalia Church of God of Prophecy right here on the hill. So the bottom line is this is a catastrophic situation. These people need our prayers. They're going to have a hard time getting supplies in after this is over. Montego Bay over here on the northwest coast may be unaffected to the point where maybe they can get supplies in relatively soon. Maybe this airport will be usable. And then but all the roads are going to be cut off, and then they're going to have to use helicopters to get everything over. And that's going to be a long, arduous process. Bottom line is a lot of people are going to lose their life to this. And we need to pray that God shows mercy. And we as a nation, as part of the whole USAID cutting of funding, we've cut off $54 million of aid to Jamaica. A lot of that went to stop child labor. A lot of that went to help at-risk youth. It wasn't used for, uh, this thing or that thing. Some of it was, but a lot of it went to help real issues that Jamaica was struggling with, such as stopping child labor and helping at risk youth. And we stopped that to the tune of $54 million. And Jamaica will not be able to recover on their own. It will be a humanitarian crisis after this is over. And so, for a nation such as the United States, for so many of you who say that we are a Christian nation, and that's another video for another time. Well, if we are, now's the time to prove it. Now's the time to say with our actions that we will step up and do what Jesus would do, which is help the needy, help the poor, and they don't have to look like us, because these people will need our help. There's going to be a lot of suffering. There's going to be a lot of death. And we need to pray for God's mercy on these people. And we need to pray that somehow through this, the Lord will be glorified. So I hope you will join me in praying for the people of Jamaica. And I pray that God will act supernaturally. And it has been my prayer that somehow God will act supernaturally if it is His will to make this storm move or go somewhere else or just disappear. But I don't know if that's His will. Maybe His will is to test a nation such as ours that is the wealthiest on earth to see if we will be merciful, because as you know, in James chapter 2 verse 13, those who show no mercy get no mercy, and those who show mercy get an abundance of it. So I thank you for joining me on this update, and may God richly bless you.